All right, so when we stopped talking yesterday, we talked about some characteristics of perfect competition. Um, and then we talked about some imperfect competition. Today, we'll finish up our notes on supply and demand in this unit. We'll talk a little bit about monopolies. So, what are monopolies? What are some impacts of a monopoly? Um, I'll give you a second and then I'll talk. So, well, we talked about perfect competition and imperfect competition. Um, the perfect competition aspect is obviously the most competitive market. And we talked about some things like governmental um, interference and some other things that can lead to some imperfect competitions within the market structure. One of those things is a monopoly. A monopoly is when there's only one seller of a product in an area. Um, and that one product doesn't really have a close substitute. Now, there's a handful of different um, things that could be in that monopoly vein, but the easiest one for you guys to realize is um, internet service in Oaks. Like if you want internet service or electrical service or water, there's really not any options in Oaks. It's not like you can get water or get your internet from DRN or Midco. You only have one choice. If you don't get your internet from DRN, then you don't get internet. Now you can try and do the other. There are some other options out there. Maybe pay Verizon unlimited and use your phone as a hotspot for your computer. I mean, there's probably some options. None of them are real good, but you know. Now a monopoly, like a pure monopoly, is about as rare as perfect competition. Um, it just there's monopolies, but it's not like a only one. Like there's not only one of something typically, or one producer of something. Um, when we talk about monopolies, one form of monopoly is a cartel. A cartel. Now, it's not drug cartels. I know that that's the usually when you hear the word cartel, usually the word drug is followed right in front of it. But a cartel is a formal organization of sellers that agree to act as one and set the prices, or limit the amount of output. So one of the things that as you guys were going through and doing your research on gas prices, there's a couple different reasons, and you guys hit on a lot of them. Is there's a hurricane, and that slowed down production on the Gulf Coast. But OPEC is the oil producing countries in the Middle East is a cartel, and they get together and they dictate how much oil price is going to go to, or how much the price of a barrel of crude oil is going to go to, because they supply the majority of the world with oil and they control the output. So if they decide, hey, we're going to put out less oil, make less available for purchase, the price will go up. And that's one of the main reasons right now, aside from some other limiting factors in the United States, that gas prices are currently going up. Um, if you're one of those cartel, monopoly, whatever, and there's really no close substitutes, then you become the price maker. Um, a business that doesn't really have to consider its competitors when setting its price is what a price maker is. Think of Miller's Fresh Foods. I mean, realistically, there's not much competition for Miller's Fresh Foods. In Oaks, now they do have competition from the internet, and they have competition from people going to Fargo or Grand Forks or whatever the case might be. But that's not what they set the prices. The other thing is, like, if you go to Miller's Fresh Food and that grocery store there, like realistically, if you go to like Hornbacher's or something like that, the prices are going to be fairly similar to they're going to be closer to Miller's Fresh Food than they would be to like a Walmart or a Target. So it's not like Miller's Fresh Food isn't out of line when you compare supermarkets to supermarkets. It's just a lot more expensive than it would be at like a Walmart or a Target. Um, the last piece, the last piece to this is um, some other firms may want to bar entry into the market. Um, so you can control prices in a couple different ways. One of them is you control the output, you control the product coming into the market. The other one is if you're already in the market, you can make it more difficult for others to get in and do business within that market. So there's some characteristics of a monopoly. Um, Again, there's only one seller. Um, Restricted markets. So if you're selling something and you're the main seller of that thing, you don't want a lot of competition because then it can affect the amount of money you can make or the price that you can set it. Because again, competition is going to lead to a lowering in prices in most cases. And so, what you don't want to have happen if you're the main show in town is to have a bunch of competition. And so, if you can restrict or regulate that market, um, whether it's you restricting, whether it's the government constricting it, um, you can do other things to control it. Now, one of the things we talked about price floor and price ceiling. One of the things like a price ceiling that the government sets is on electricity. So before the electrical company can raise your electrical bill every year, and they usually raise it about 5 to 6% per year. But before they can raise that, they have to get the state government's approval to charge their customers more. So the government sets a price ceiling on electrical bills, how much you can charge per kilowatt hour. So, uh, and that's a way to help control prices for the economy. So they can't just set it whatever because again, there's only one electrical company in most cities, regardless of the size of the city. And there's some monopolies on the bottom there. You can see like a natural monopoly, a governmental monopoly, a technological monopoly, and a geographic monopoly. One that will take a little bit longer look at is a technological monopoly. So to get a technological monopoly, there's a handful of different ways to do it. Typically, what happens is you become one of the first with an idea, whatever that idea is. So you can see over on the left there's Google, there's Amazon, there's Apple, and there's Facebook. Those are your four technological giants as it stands today. So if you come up with an idea, whatever that idea might be, and you patent it, patent gives you a legal restriction on an invention. Okay? And you're the one that patents it, you get to have that piece of technology that nobody else can have for a set number of years, depending on the patent. Sometimes it's forever, sometimes it's for 20 years. It just kind of depends on the patent that you get and how long the patent lasts. But all of these companies, they had a piece of technology that they patented, and then they were able to take that and continue to expand their business. And then what happens is these companies start to buy up other competitors. And so, it's not on here, but like Microsoft. Okay, so when Microsoft was first starting out, they had Windows, and there was a whole bunch of different companies that had Microsoft, and then it became a all of one type of thing. Then it became like all the Microsoft things and then all the Apple things. And like now, since you guys have been around, you can get Microsoft Office on your Apple products. But for a long, long time, Microsoft and Apple weren't very compatible. Not because you couldn't do Apple and Microsoft. It's just they were competitors, so they weren't very compatible. Now they are, but it's just a different way to expand the business. But Microsoft went around and just started buying up a whole bunch of different companies that offered similar products or variations of products or things that they wanted to do that they didn't know how to do or they weren't able to do yet. And they just went around and bought them up because they had enough money. Great Plains Technology in Fargo. The governor of North Dakota was the owner of Great Plains Technology. And he was bought out by Microsoft. And that's how he made all of his money. But Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, had a piece of technology that was bought out, and that's how he got his money to buy the Dallas Mavericks. So, and that was fairly standard, and it's still fairly standard. If you take a look, if you for your homework today, you'll do a little research and find out what tech companies have bought what and who all owns what. So you'll have a chance to kind of go through it and see it. The last one that we'll talk about is a governmental involvement in monopolies. So, and not just in monopolies, but in pricing and the supply and demand, is that depending on the government, and it changes a lot, but governments can regulate or deregulate things, and it changes the prices. If something is illegal, or maybe it's going to be illegal, or you can't do it the way that it used to be, and so the way that you have to do it now is more expensive, or whatever that process is, there's a chance that it can significantly influence the profit margin or the price, depending on. One of the things that our former President Trump talked about all the time was he wanted to deregulate businesses, cut the red tape, and all these things. In effect, making it easier, in his thought, is make it easier for businesses to conduct business and have them have a greater opportunity to make more money. Now, you can argue the other side of that and say, well, yeah, but if the government deregulates it, then it's just big businesses taking advantage of their consumers. So you can argue both sides of it. We'll argue both sides of it when we get to POD, so we're not going to argue it here. But that's the role that deregulation and regulation plays in the pricing structure. The last thing there we'll talk about is predatory pricing. If you are trying to drive a competitor out of business. So let's say I open a hardware store in Oaks and I want to drive Praska's Hardware out of business, or I want to take out Mertz Lumber. I start selling products that are way below their prices, knowing that I'm going to sell more of their products and they won't be able to sell any of them, and I'll eventually drive them out of business. And if I can drive them both out of business, then I'd be the only lumber yard / hardware store in town, and then I could raise the price to whatever I want because I would create a monopoly for myself. So, and companies do that occasionally where they set predatory prices on different things to try and drive their competition out of business. So, well, there we go. That's where we're going to stop for today. Tomorrow, oh, come on, baby. Tomorrow we'll do our review. There'll be a quick homework, and that'll be that. We're done with this. We'll take a test on this on Friday, and start a new unit the following week. So I'll be back for your test on Friday. So if you have any questions about anything that we've covered before then, we can talk about it then. But like I said, tomorrow there'll be a review. There's a quick homework assignment today. Tomorrow there'll be a review and a little bit longer homework assignment, and test Friday, and that'll be your week. All right. See you at the end of the week.